out tonight. I have a couple of reminders that we are doing summer reading, so if you haven't signed up for summer reading, please do so. We're doing it for the next 2 months until the end of July. We have a lot of fun things planned. We're going to do a flick and float over at the Algonquin pool. We're going to have another movie on the riverfront, so if you want to bring out your family, you're welcome to do those things, and they're all in our little calendars that we have up there. But today, we're going to have Phil Aleo, and he is an author and historian, and I actually met him when we were signing up for the bus tour to San Filippo. So then I got to learn all about him. I'm like, oh my goodness, let's have you here. So please, without further ado, Phil is going to talk to us about Haeger Pottery tonight. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Well, I might have to turn that down.
Okay.
I have a big mouth.
Underneath the speaker possibly.
You have a control there? I don't want to have to whisper the whole time. That'd be hard.
Okay, try now.
Okay. Let's see how that is. Okay, I think it's a little better, huh? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's tell you a little bit about myself. I lived in West Dundee, Sleepy Hollow. I've been in this area my entire life. And I've always been a researcher, and I've always documented what I research. I've always done that my entire life on everything, pretty much. And back like 20 years ago, I was researching my home area, Dundee area, and I would show it to people, my neighbors or friends or whatever. They would go crazy over this. They would say, you can't keep this to yourself. You need to publish this. And so I bit the bullet. I self-published that first book, and it was scary because it cost $23,000 to get it printed. It's a lot of money, you know, but I got it printed. And actually, this one right here. And within 6 months, I sold so many copies that I paid for itself. And from that point from there on, I just kept on doing books. So now I've done 6 books, all from this area, then one in Durango, Colorado. And my newest book is on Galena, Illinois. How many have been to Galena? Isn't that a special town? So it's been a lot of fun. This is my passion. I love to do this. And so I hope that tonight you will enjoy this presentation on Haeger Pottery, okay? So what I'll do, let's turn the lights down. And,
That's always the hard thing to do.
okay.
I'll try, but it might end up going dark.
That's okay if it goes dark. Oh, good. Is that better? Okay. That's good. That's very good. Okay. So we're going to get started then, okay? So to fully appreciate the impact and the history of Haeger Pottery, we need to go really back in time. Nearly 2 centuries we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the year of 1839. And we're going to go across to Europe, to Germany. And from Germany we're going to go to a specific area, which is called Mecklenburg, Germany. The reason why, David H. Haeger was born in this section of Germany on August 7th, 1839. His early childhood years were spent here in Germany. Then in 1854, like many immigrants, they came to America. They sailed to America from that area. Now, you have to understand that back then, there were pretty much sailing ships. It took 5 to 6 weeks to cross the Atlantic in a sailing ship back at that time. David was 15 years old at this time when they came over with his family. So once the Haeger family arrived in America, they headed west. Eventually, arriving in Illinois, they settled 4 miles from the town of Algonquin, where we're at right now, McHenry County, and this would later become Barrington Hills. This was at a time when this entire region was still in its infancy. It was just now beginning to develop. So prior to this time period, this entire region had been Indian territory. The Indians that lived here were the Potawatomi Indians at this time. So what took place is this. Around 1830, the government put about an Indian Removal Act, and they started to vacate the Indians out of Illinois. Then in 1832, the Black Hawk War broke out. Thousands of militiamen and soldiers of General Winfield Scott's army marched through the Fox River Valley during the war, and accounts of the area's fertile soils and flowing springs soon filtered east. I have numerous newspaper articles from the 1830s and 1840s and so on, talking about the Fox River, printed in Pennsylvania, printed in New York. It was really something else. These events, though, that we're talking about, this led to the expulsion of the Native Americans who had settlements and burial mounds in this area. And it really set the stage for the development of the Fox River Valley. So when the Haegers arrived here from Germany in 1854, Algonquin, Barrington, Carpentersville, and Dundee were nothing more than small hamlets of families attempting to start a new life in what up until just a few years prior had been the domain and possession of these Potawatomi Indians. Elgin, just to show an example of what we're talking about, Elgin's population at this time when they moved here was barely 2,000 people. It actually was even chartered in this very year as a city. Chicago is 70,000 people at this time. That's how small Chicago was. A few years prior to the Haeger family moving here to this region, a company had been established in the hamlet of Dundee. And it was named the Dundee Brick Company. This was in 1852, and it was originally owned by these two men listed here, Hull and Gillette. So in short order, this company attained the reputation of producing the highest quality brick in the entire region. This is a newspaper article from the Belvedere Standard from 1856. Look what it says here. It's talking about Dundee brick. It's thought by many, it states, to be of superior appearance to the far-famed Milwaukee brick. That's an example of a newspaper article talking about this. Here's another one. This is from the Belvedere Standard from 1860. And talking of Dundee brick, it says, these are of a pale yellow color and as hard as cast iron, almost. They are the best brick we have such and look better in a building than red brick. So they were very, very hard brick. Now let's mention something about that because it's so important. The majority of you raised your hands when I asked how many had gone to Galena. Galena made their own brick as well, but their brick had a problem. It was only hardened about 1/4 of an inch into the brick, and then it's soft. So the buildings in Galena are continually being updated and repaired because of the poor quality of the brick being so soft when it wears in. It's not true of the Dundee brick. We have buildings standing, which I'll show you in a little while, that are over 100 years old, made of this brick that are just like new. This brick. So this brick was really known for its hardness and its quality. There were some people, though, who were not happy with the success of the Dundee Brick Company. An amusing article was published in the Marengo newspaper in 1864. I'm going to show this to you. Move this a little closer. There we go. Here's what it says. For a few years past, all the bricks that have been used at Marengo have been brought from a distance. Dundee bricks sell for 1 cent apiece. So high are they that a poor man can scarcely afford to have one in his hat. Not a quadruped in a whole district fears a brickbat. He has not been acquainted with that kind of projectile. What? How many understand that? I didn't understand this. So I had to look into this to figure out what he's trying to say here, because they talked differently back then, you know? So this is what it boils down to. To have a brick in your hat was to say that you are drunk. So evidently the writer was saying that the cost of Dundee bricks was so high that poor people couldn't even afford to buy a drink. A quadruped, it's a 4-legged creature or animal. So what he's saying here in the end there, that not a quadruped in the whole district fears a brickbat because there weren't any, because they were so expensive, he's saying here. Like I state here, a brickbat is a piece of brick typically used as a weapon. That's what it breaks down to in understanding this here. So this guy wasn't happy because they were too expensive. A penny a piece was too much money for him. So in spite of those who envied the quality and prosperity of the Dundee Brick Company, major building projects in the 1860s made full use of this hard as iron brick. Here's an example. This is from 1865. You note up here it's talking about the Elgin Watch Factory. And here it states that they were being made of Dundee brick. Here's a picture of it, how it looked. It was an unbelievable structure. This is one of the earliest pictures of the Elgin Watch Factory. Here's how it looked later. Different view vantage points. Here's one more. All Dundee brick. 1871. This is the 1871 Atlas and History of Kane County. You might be wondering, why am I talking about bricks when we're talking about Haeger Pottery? But you're going to see why in a minute, okay? So, this 1871 Atlas and History of Kane County made a reference to the Dundee Brick Company. It stated, the present company expanded in 1867. They are employed about 60 hands, and their annual sales amounts to about 3 million brick. That's a lot of brick. The clay from which the beautiful cream-colored brick is made is contained in the high bluffs on the east side of the Fox River. That deposit is an immense mass, some 60 feet deep and practically inexhaustible. And went on to say, the facilities for the important business are unsurpassed, and the demand is almost unlimited. So, pretty interesting topic about this brick company. Now, 1871, this is an important year for a number of reasons. Number one, it was a major turning point in the history of this area. For example, East Dundee was incorporated and started to have elected officials in this very year. But more importantly on our topic, this is the year that David Henry Haeger moved to East Dundee and purchased this Dundee Brick Company, renaming it the D.H. Haeger Brick and Tile Works Company, 1871. And then, on October 8th, Chicago goes up in flames. This was, and the fire wasn't even extinguished for like 5 days later, until October the 11th. And that was an unbelievable destruction. In its wake, the fire claimed over 600 lives. It spread over 4 square miles, destroying 18,000 buildings, and left 100,000 people homeless. Here's some examples of the damage. And here's the size. First of all, this is a map showing the amount of city blocks that were wiped out by that Chicago fire. Here's some examples. This is the First National Bank building on the southwest corner of State and Washington. Here's how it looked prior to the fire. That's afterwards. Isn't that something? Here's side by side. Here's the Tribune building, before and after. Here's the corner of State and Madison Street. This is an unbelievable destruction that took place in the city. So the David H. Haeger Brick and Tile Works Company was instrumental in helping to rebuild Chicago, supplying literally millions of brick for the city. And this is what really led to a great success. Can you imagine the amount of money that he made that very year and the year after selling brick to Chicago? Here's some of the workers. Look at the various ages. Even some young children. There wasn't any restrictions there on kids working back then, was there? So, here's a close-up. These are the molds for making the bricks. And way there. Here's an example of these bricks. This is one of the David Haeger bricks. It says HD. Haeger Dundee is what it stands for. So Haeger brick was in demand, not just in Chicago, but throughout this area as well. By 1885, Haeger was the largest brickyard in Illinois. There are many buildings made of Haeger brick that still stand, although well over a century old. And I'm going to show some examples of this now. This is the first one I'm going to show. This is the Elgin State Hospital on 31. Are we all familiar with that? So, yeah, not like this anymore. So, isn't that the truth? But this is how it looked when it opened. It was a beautiful structure, wasn't it? But look what it was called. The Northern Illinois Hospital and Asylum for the Insane. This is what they titled it back then. Isn't that something? It was a beautiful structure. Carpentersville. This is the Illinois Iron and Bolt Company. Again, constructed of Haeger brick, and the earliest building still standing was built in 1871. You know Main Street in Carpentersville? And you're coming down the hill off of 31, and the first building to your right with the cupola on top, that's the oldest building standing there in that section of the Aleo buildings, built in 1871. So I think this is the one right here. These all here were all built within a year or two after, a couple years afterwards. This was built in 1873. Here's how it looks today. I'm sure most of us are familiar with the beautiful renovation that's been done in this area. It's remarkable. Here's West Dundee, Main Street. This is the Hunt Block, named after its owner, H.E. Hunt, right here. You know what building that is? Not sure? Emmett's, you're right. That's Emmett's, yeah. That was built in 1871. There it is. This is when it was brand new. You know, it's interesting that back then there's always individuals standing out the windows or somewhere. They have to be involved in the picture. That's how it was back then, you know? Because pictures were so probably uncommon, you know? There they are standing on the roof. It was brand new. So it's interesting, but this is really something else. Look at how Main Street looked back then. All wooden structures. So that's how it looks today, of course. This is the Union School in West Dundee, built in 1872.
Yeah, I went to school.
Went to school there? No kidding.
All 8 years.
All 8 years. Isn't that something? Yep. A lot of people don't know that it was all the years were there. It wasn't just high school, it was all the years.
Was that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I went to kindergarten.
Yeah,
Went to
yeah,
kindergarten
yeah,
there?
you're right there too.
Yeah, I went there a couple of years, yeah. Wow.
So our guests here in the front went to school.
A long time ago.
So a long time ago, yep. Years go by mighty fast, don't they? So that's how it looked back then. This is when it was pretty new. Actually, they built this, and within a couple of years it burned. They had to rebuild it. It wasn't totally destroyed, but they had a lot of reconstruction. That's how it looks today. Today is the Union School Apartments. This is the church that's one of the churches on Main Street in Dundee, made of yes, Emmanuel Lutheran. 1886 it was built of Dundee brick. This is how it looks today. Beautiful structure. The First Congregational Church of Dundee has a special significance, and I'll tell you why. This is the church that the Haeger family attended throughout their life, from 1871 forward, and they still do to this day, matter of fact. In the building that was built in 1901, the cornerstone of this church was laid by Miss Nelda Haeger, who is David Haeger's daughter. So she was involved with putting items of interest into the cornerstone. That's how the church looked years ago. And that's how it looks today. There's not much of a change. The biggest change is that you notice here the window here, the stained glass. Look at this picture, it's gone. They built a new church up on 31, top of the hill there.
Yeah.
And that was actually donated by the Haeger family, the stained glass, and they wanted that in the new church. So that glass is now in the new church on 31. Yeah. St. James, how many have been to this church? This is a beautiful little, sleepy little church many people don't even know exists in West Dundee. Again, Haeger brick, beautiful church. So along with brick, though, Haeger did much other things too. He was a major manufacturer of drain tile. Here's a newspaper article I found from 1887 from Freeport. And look what it says, drain tile and road culverts. Look at the sizes, 2.5 inch to 15 inch. By the D.H. Haeger Brick and Tile Works Company, Dundee, Illinois. I found this in an old newspaper. Isn't that something? So expansion. It's important to note that the Haeger Brick and Tile Company had additional factories besides Dundee. In 1881, David Haeger purchased another brickyard in Elgin, and then in 1885, he purchased land in what was then called Gilbert's Station. Now today we know it as Gilbert's. And he built there a new factory which produced brick and drain tile as well. By 1888, the Haeger Brick and Tile Works Company was producing 10 million brick per year and 2.5 million pieces of drain tile per year. So they were a major manufacturing entity in this line of work. Here's an example from 1915. This is from the newspaper talking about drain tile. And by this time, it goes to 24 inches in size. And it says they use the tile that have stood the test for 30 years. This is the Haeger Brick and Tile Company, Elgin. Like I said, they had different locations. Of course, it wasn't always smooth sailing. Unforeseen events occurred that had to be dealt with, as is true of all our lives. And this is an example from 1894 from the Marengo Republican newspaper. And it states that Gilbert's Friday, the boiler in the Haeger Brick and Tile Factory exploded, killing August Tarnow, a young man, 20 years of age. It blew the engine house to atoms and set fire to the factory, which was burned to the ground, together with all the factory property. The loss will amount to about $40,000. First of all, isn't it something, the detail they go into in the newspapers back then? It blew to atoms, you know, the way they expressed things back then. Now, $40,000, that's a lot of money today, but this was back in 1894. That figure, and by today's standards, goes to $1.2 million.